So this is the second part of a talk about ritual armor, and it's really important to remember that the armor is alive, and not only does the fabric have spirits, but all of the items tied to it, fixed to it, are to do with spirits as well, and they have spirits living in them. So you are wearing a whole bunch of spirits when you put it on, and they are also part of the protection. They are an important part of the protection. So when you are making your armor or working with your armor, at the beginning it's inert, it's empty, it's a spirit house. And when you are building a house at the start, nobody is living in it, and so it needs to be empowered. And there's different ways, different traditional ways of working with that, of empowering things. In the Buryat tradition, no, sorry, I'm saying the wrong name. In the Dark Hat tradition, the shaman, who is the shaman teacher, who has the student, when a student gets their armor, the shaman will call in the spirits, because they're working with the same spirits. They will call in the spirits while they are wearing the student's armor, and then they will quickly get out of the student's armor and the student will put it on. And so the student then kind of inherits the spirits. That actually happens in different cultures. Very often the teacher shaman will wear the armor and introduce the student to the spirits in some form. Again, we haven't got that. We can't do that. We've got to find our own way. We are not Mongolian shamans. We can work with some of the techniques and we can work with some of the ideas, and we very much have to listen to our spirits, but we have to find our own way of doing it. The way that I would suggest that you do it is you talk very, very deeply with your spirits. You journey to your spirits and you ask, how, if at all, should I wear armor? And then you follow their instructions. And when you have made the armor, if they say you should have it, or obtained the armor in whatever way you get it, then you do more journeys around, how should I empower the armor? How do I bring in the spirits? And you talk to individual spirits, perhaps your spirit helpers, and say, how do I represent you on my armor? How do I make a house for you? How do I bring you in? You've got to be proactive. I always say that if you're shamanic journeying, it's not like lying on your sort of floor and watching television. It's like you're going shopping. You've got to go in to all of these places. You've got to barge through the crowds. You've got to talk to the shop assistant. They've got to give you demonstrations about stuff and whatever if you don't know how to use it. It's really proactive. It's really, really proactive. It is not a passive spectator sport. So when you go off and you're with the spirits, you are talking with them all the time, and you are asking them, and you're asking questions. Bother your spirits. Be a bloody nuisance to them. Ask them things. You are not there to just sort of shuffle about and look at your feet and expect them to give you the answers. You have to be proactive. So you talk to them all the time, and you talk to them and ask them questions about how you can bring them in. And do they want to be brought in? Do you want to have your, I don't know, let's say you work with a bear. Does bear need to be represented on your armor in some way? And if bear says no, then don't put it on. And if bear says yes, then you say, okay, how do I put you on, and how do I bring you into that particular bit that represents you so that it becomes alive? So it's all individual. We just don't have a culture. We don't have a lineage, and all of you are individuals that are going to be doing it different ways, trying to find your feet. I think maybe if this all develops in 100 years, in 200 years, in 1,000 years, maybe there'll be lineages in the West that have proper ways of doing it, that become the orthodox ways, which become the tradition, which, you know, and that's a really important thing. if you are lucky enough to get to take empowerments and initiations within a lineage, that's wonderful, but the bulk of you won't, because it's just too difficult. It's not to say it's impossible. I got a friend that met her traditional teacher in a laundrette in a major western city, and they went in there to wash their clothes, and they met a shaman, and the shaman took them on as an apprentice. So these things can happen. Truly, they can happen, but that's rare. That is rare. And that's karma too. That's a whole big thing. If it's your karma to meet a teacher like that, then you will. But for most people, it's not like that. And that's partially why I say that core shamanism can be an excellent way to meet the spirits. And some traditional people they have a very poor view of core shamanism. Especially nowadays, because it's gone so fluffy in a lot of places and there's so much new age crap put into it. But in essence, if you do it really tightly and go back to the roots of core shamanism, the work of Hana and Sandy Ingerman and other people like that, and you're doing it literally by the book, without any kind of fluffy crystals and whatever that you might add to it, then it's a very good way for you to work with the spirits and for you to meet the spirits in a Western way, because you're not likely to meet a shaman the next time you go to the laundrette or the supermarket, or you're standing in line in the bank or whatever. It may happen, but it probably won't. So you need to find your own authentic way, and you need to be ruthlessly honest about how you are being told by the spirits to make your armor and to bless your armor. Now, the other thing around that is that the more you get used to the spirits coming into you and kind of taking you over, the more putting on the armor. If you remember in the first video, I talked about anchors. I talked about how they become a kind of trigger for something, and that happens with putting on the armor. So if I'm going to do a big healing or something and I'm putting on the armor, it's really hard because the spirits are kind of around, and my body movements get really jerky, and my coordination goes, and I probably want to start singing, and I start shaking, and I might do involuntary little sort of swaying dances and all of this kind of stuff. It's really strange when the spirits come in, and that makes it really difficult to dress yourself. In traditional shamanic cultures, shamans have assistants, and I'm not lucky enough to have assistants. I wish I did. It would be really cool to have assistants that actually were there to catch you if you fall over, to help dress you, and to kind of just basically look after you and keep the space. And some of you, maybe you've got that, and if you have, how did you get it and why haven't I got it? But great, but again, chances are you won't have that, and so you've got to learn to manage the trance state, and putting on the armor will automatically start to move you, especially the more you do it, into that trance state. So you've got to kind of manage that. Not all shamanic traditions all the time work with armor. That's another thing I wanted to say. The Mongolian tradition is that you have two sorts of shamanism, and the two sorts of shamanism are called walking shamanism, and sometimes it's called riding shamanism. So walking shamanism is the stuff that you do in the daytime. Walking shamanism doesn't involve you putting on ritual clothes. It mostly just involves very often putting on a small everyday hat, sometimes with a kadag, one of these blue scarves. It's an offering scarf. So you have a hat and a kadag which hangs down the back. You'll often see that. That's it. That's the only armor, and they do more lightweight work in daytime. Walking shamanism is much more to do with blessing people, doing divination, kind of that kind of stuff, and with some traditions too, it's very much working with the jaw harp, the kur, and the manjig. Now the manjig is used by some cultures. I have a manjig which was made for me by dark hat shamans, and they have asked me not to show it, so I can't show my dark hat manjig to you. But the manjig is basically a bundle of snakes, which are all, again, they're alive. It's a bundle of nagas made of cloth, and they are made of sheep's wool, which is taken from specially chosen sheep which have special markings on, and ceremony is done with the milk. Ceremony is done with the sheep. They have to drink milk and various other things, and they have to kind of accept the shaman working with them, and then the sheep is shorn, and then it's rolled, the wool is rolled into like a long tube, and it's covered with fabric, and it's a whole rigmarole, and there's all these different coloured nagas on it which represent different aspects of the nagas, and then there are other objects which are tied onto it. Mine has got a whole wolf's paw, you know, the lower leg and the foot of a wolf, and it's got a big bear's claw, and it's got a mirror tied to it, and it's got an arrowhead that has taken life, and lots of different jingles and different things. There's other things tied to it too, and that with the manjig, you throw it over your shoulder and you're playing the jaw harp, and the shamans say that the manjig acts like armor. That's the equivalent of wearing full armor, and you use that in daytime. So that's used for walking shamanism. And then the big stuff with the armor, the big healings and all of that, that's always done at night. That's nighttime shamanism. That's the shamanism that when you are ridden by the spirits, riding shamanism, and you're using the drum. Now, some Mongolian and Siberian shamans will use the drum in the day, but a lot of them won't. They'll only work with the drum at night in the dark, when they do the big work. So again, different cultures, even within a similar kind of location, there are lots of different ways of doing it in different cultures. So what hope do we have when we don't even have those lineages? We have to find our way. We're kind of stumbling around in the darkness. I sometimes moan to my Mongolian shaman friends that, oh, it's all right for you, you've got a lineage, you kind of know what to do, and you're taught to do it by the elders. And they will quite rightly retort back to me, yeah, but it's all right for you because you can do what you want to do because you don't have any lineage that's making you kind of follow a certain path. And both are true. Both are true. There's swings and roundabouts, losses and gains on both bits. So you talk to your spirits, you find out exactly if you should wear armour and exactly what the armour should consist of, and how it should be made and how it should be blessed and awakened and what should be tied to it and what shouldn't be tied to it, and you keep your ego out of it as much as you can, and you are ruthlessly honest as much as you can with what the spirits have told you, and you follow the letter of the law, and you kind of are respectful to them because they are in charge. And then you have to find out when you wear it and the whole kind of protocols. About 3 years ago, my spirits told me to put a mala, not this one, it's another one, it's hanging up over there, a mala around my neck when I'm working, and they told me to keep it on when I had finished working and I'd taken all of the rest of my ritual clothes off, and I'd keep the mala on until it annoys the hell out of me, and when it starts to annoy the hell out of me, then I'm really back in my body and I can take the mala off. So you listen to your spirits because the spirits will teach you. They are the teachers. They absolutely are the teachers. Okay, what about wearing armor in the rest of the time when, you know, I'm not doing shamanic work now, but am I wearing armor? Yes, I've got amulets on underneath my shirt here. So I'm just reaching across for some things on a table here. Let's grab a few bits and pieces. A shaman's mirror is very much part of Mongolian shaman's armor, and shamans will generally wear a little mirror. I will very often wear a little mirror. I'm not actually wearing one at the moment, but this is a tiny little shaman's mirror. It's pretty old. It's, I don't know, 200 or 300 years old. It's got little markings on the back and the front. Shaman's mirrors are very rarely reflective, especially when they're old. So I would wear that, you know, on a cord around my neck, and I'd tuck it underneath my shirt. Here is another one. This is the one I mostly wear. Again, very similar, kind of dull metal thing. Again, it's 200 or 300 years old. It's got the boss at the back where you have a hole, and this one's got a ring on it so that the cord hangs from the ring. And this has got a piece of ironwork, piece of shaman's ironwork on the back, which, because one of my spirit helpers and I have a relationship with is Damjen Dorlig, the blacksmith spirit, so that's to connect me with Damjen Dorlig. If I'm in the house, because the house is kind of fairly protected, because I do a lot of work in the house, protection work wise, I tend to wear less armor. If I'm going out, especially at this particular point with coronavirus, I'll always wear a shaman's mirror. So that is very much part of my armor. It's everyday armor. This is a whole different culture. This is a medicine bag. This is Native American medicine bag from the medicine traditions, and it has the same thing. It's alive. It contains things which are for protection and which remind you of you as well in that respect. It's about your own personal medicine, but it's very much to do with protection. So again, it's the same thing but from a completely different culture. What else we got here? This is a Tibetan amulet. Very lovely. I'm fond of this. This is a Tibetan man's protection amulet in the form of a snow leopard with this amazing long tail. If you look at pictures of snow leopards, you'll see that they have long tails like that. So that would be worn again as a piece of protection. And in these sorts of cultures, it's not just shamans that have amulets and wear protection like that. You'll often find where have we got here? Yeah, okay. There's another man's protection amulet from Tibet in the form of a tiger. And you'll very often find, especially in Tibet and Nepal, the Tibetan people will wear mirrors, even if they're not shamans, around their neck. The Tibetan name for a mirror is a milong. And you'll often find them, this one hasn't, but you'll often find them with the calendar on the back, the 12 zodiac animals, and very often a little representation of Yama, the god of death, holding the wheel of rebirth. It's that round wheel, and Yama is kind of peering over the top and holding it. And those are the realms that you can get born again into when you die: human realm, and hungry ghost realm, and god realm, and demigod realm, and hell worlds. And so shamans wear mirrors, but the kind of the hoi polloi, for want of a better way of putting it, also wear mirrors because they reflect away the evil eye. They protect. Mirrors are very much about reflecting back what might come to you. With shamans, it's slightly different because mirrors are also spirit houses, and so a shaman's spirits will live in their mirror. And shamans work very deliberately with mirrors, and there are a whole set of teachings about working with mirrors to bond with the mirror and work with it in that very much ritualistic way, which the average kind of yak herder isn't necessarily going to know about. So the average yak herder, or the average bus conductor, or the average banker, or the average shop assistant, or the average office worker, or the average whatever it is that you are, even if you're not doing shamanic work, can still wear a mirror as a form of protection. And you would work with a mirror, you would ask the spirits to bless the mirror, you would smudge the mirror, you would offer it to the four directions, and you would ask the spirits that love you to be with you, to help protect you and empower this mirror. That's a kind of non-shamanic, animistic, everyday, non-technical way of working with a new mirror. You can very much simply ask the spirits who love you to work with it. And if you've got a shamanic practice and you know how to journey, then any ritual object, be it mirror or anything else, you can journey to that spirit of that object, and you can journey to your own spirits and ask them what it is that you need to do with it and how you can empower it and work with it and keep it clean too. You know, I quite often will put ritual objects, especially metal ones, in little pots of vodka. Vodka is like a liquid smudge. It cleans things and it also feeds the spirits. You can put things down on the ground, you can put things on the earth and let the earth drain stuff out from the object as well. There's different ways of working with ritual objects and keeping them clean and keeping them in that kind of pristine state for you to put them on and work with them. And again, this all varies in different cultures. Traditionally, the shaman's mirrors were blooded each year. A sheep would be sacrificed and the spirits of the mirror would be given blood to drink, or sometimes a reindeer. I don't do that. Mine have to make do with smudge and vodka. But traditionally, mirrors were blooded. Sacrifice is a whole other big topic, but just briefly, sacrifice takes a role in most traditional forms of shamanism, not all but most, and it's also really important to realize that there's a practical reason for that too. If you are living in Siberia, you don't have a lot of vegetables, you eat meat, that's what you do, and you are maybe doing a ceremony in the sticks miles away from anywhere, and maybe your community are coming to that ceremony so that there's a whole group of people there, and so you are also working with the spirits who are ancestors. Now that's another thing to talk about, really, is the whole sort of gamut of spirits, and I'd like to do that more in another video. But basically, if you're working in a traditional way, you're working with ancestors, and the spirit helpers of shamans are ancestral, and ancestors like to eat the same things that you did. So that's why you'll often see shamans in Mongolia smoking and drinking milk when the spirits come in, because that's not the shaman doing that, it's the ancestor spirits that are taking them over. And so you offer meat, you offer good food to the ancestors. So a sheep would be killed and it would be offered on the altar, and then also all of the people at the end of the ceremony would share the food. Very rarely is food wasted in these rituals. It's not like you kill an animal and kind of just dispose of it. Sometimes that does happen, but it's rare. Mostly you are in effect killing the animal for the ritual feast that will happen afterwards, and you're thanking the spirits and you're making an offering of the animal to the ancestors, and then you are also eating it. So the ancestors have this kind of the spiritual part of the animal, and you have the physical part of the animal. I know sacrifice is a difficult area for a lot of people, and they think it's barbaric and whatever, but it's pragmatic. People have to eat. And like I say, you want to be out on the steppes in Mongolia and find something to eat, and pretty much if you're a vegetarian, you're going to struggle. And if you're a vegan, you're really going to struggle. So it's about being practical. So mirrors are blooded, like I said, and other ritual objects are as well. That's all to do with feeding the spirits, but mine don't get that. Mine don't get that at all. My poor old spirits. There you go. What a terrible life they have in my place. So I think I've said all I need to say in this particular video. So we'll talk more about spirits, and we'll talk more about other things at other times. I hope that you have enjoyed this, and thank you very much for listening once again. Catch you another time. Bye bye.